What's up, everybody? Thanks for listening to the Whatcast. Mike, what's up, dude?
I'm just contemplating the idea that maybe Walt Disney movies aren't so far-fetched as I once thought they were.
Maybe they weren't drawing off of the world of fantasy.
No, yeah, maybe anthropomorphized animals that speak and interact with humans are real. What if?
Well, speaking of that, now that you mention that, there was a case that happened recently that was just weird enough to make your statement true. Do you remember that case about that little tiny baby that got lost and was found a few days later, but had a pretty weird story to tell about how he survived in those conditions?
Yeah. The Casey Hathaway case.
That's the one.
Yeah. So, yeah, that one was in 2019, early 2019 in North Carolina. And for anyone who hasn't heard the story, this little boy, he was 3 years old. His name was Casey Hathaway. He was playing in his grandma's backyard with two other kids. The two kids ended up coming in and he didn't come with them. So his grandma went out to look for him and he wasn't found. And they ended up searching the area. I believe he was missing for a week, right?
It was a few days from what I understand. I don't know if it was a week.
Yeah, maybe actually I think it was 3 days he was missing.
Right, yeah, I think that's what it was too, 3 days.
And he said for 2 of the days that he was hanging out with a bear. And it's kind of the story is kind of unclear as to whether or not the kid the bear was real or imagined by the kid, but he was missing for 3 days. On the third day they found him. He was a quarter mile from his house, 40 to 50 feet into the woods, like from civilization. He wasn't that far off. And he was heard calling for his mom. And when they found him, he was wrapped up with like thorn bushes and things like that. But he said that this bear kept him safe. And so his mom or his aunt said that it must have been like his guardian angel. But he apparently said this bear was there and it kept him alive and kept him safe and warm. The whole time he had been missing, it had been around 20 degrees. So to have a 3-year-old exposed in that weather, it'd be very likely that he would experience hypothermia and die. So what did keep him alive?
Yeah, the 2019. I mean, that's shockingly recent when you're talking about something as strange as this. Mike, you live in a rural type area. I don't think you have bears roaming around there, but in the 1800s, I'm sure that there were some bears.
I mean, there's bears not too far off from where I live. Not in my general area. We did have a bear strolling through a couple of years ago, but they're not typically in this area.
Okay, so even if we up the number of bears for you, as somebody who lives in an area where there are bears around, maybe even just a few, what does that story make you feel? I mean, that's bizarre. You're a father. Imagining losing your 3-year-old just for 5 minutes at a store is terrifying. And I don't know. What do you think of a story about this little kid at 3 saying that a bear kept him alive? I mean, I think that little guy talked about that thing hugging him and keeping him warm. I remember, did the thing speak to the kid at all?
I don't know if it did or not. The article that I read didn't mention whether it was a talking bear, but it did say that the boy said it kept him warm and safe, or warm and alive,
That's so weird. What does that make you think of? What do you think of that?
I don't know, man. Like it's crazy. it really does seem like it's a Disney movie come to life. Like this little boy is wandering through the woods, and then out of nowhere you get this bear just kind of stumbling up, and I picture the scene. They both look at each other. The little boy doesn't quite know how to take it. The bear doesn't quite know how to take this little boy. They approach each other. The little boy hugs the bear, and the bear's like, "Oh," and it just scoops him up and sings him a song, and then they're best friends.
I remember that when it happened. I just couldn't believe how fast that story came and went. I wasn't aware that it's something that had happened before, and after looking into it a little bit with a little regularity at a certain point in time. I'm going to talk about one of the more famous cases here, but it takes place in 1868 was when it was first written about in the newspaper. Now, this is a weird case because it's reappeared in news articles several times since. Like I said, it was first reported in 1868. It was again reported in 1884, 1912, 1936, 1941, and 1951. And this is the story of Katie Flynn. This story takes place at a logging camp in Michigan. And the story goes that one morning, Henry Flynn readied himself to take his horse out to pasture to graze a little bit before he went out to work. His daughter Katie asked if she can go with him, to which he agreed. So they both rode out towards the pasture, and at about 200 yards from their home, Henry stopped the horse, had Katie get off, and told her that that was far enough and she had to run back to the house, and that he'd be back in a few hours after work. As he continued on, he looked back and saw Katie playing in a pile of sand, a few feet away from where he had left her. He carried on to work, and when he got home that evening, he didn't see Katie playing outside in the front, nor did she rush to greet him when he got home. So this caused him to instantly ask his wife where Katie was. And she said, I hadn't seen her recently, and assumed that she was just playing outside. Now, this is in the 1800s in a logging camp, so I'm sure they all know their neighbors, and I guess their kid running around.
It's probably a community,
Yeah, very much so.
Everybody knows everybody, and all the kids are all friends, and so it would, if she was somewhere, I'm sure they would know.
Right. If they hadn't seen her, somebody else has, right? Well, this panicked Henry, so he rushed back to that sand pile where he left her at, and he noticed what were called, quote, giant bear tracks in the sand. So Henry ran back home, got his wife, and proceeded to search the nearby woods all through the night until the next morning. As luck would have it, two young men described as entrepreneurs who were looking to purchase nearby land happened upon the Flynns. When they informed them of their situation, they immediately joined the search for Katie. As they searched, they called out for the little girl, and as they approached a swampy, heavily bushed area, they heard her reply. Henry called out to her again, telling her to come out of the bushes and to follow his voice. To which she replied, "I can't. The bear will not let me." The group made their way through the brush towards Katie's voice when they heard a loud splash. When they broke through the foliage, they came to a river. There was a log that started on the shore that had kind of jackknife across the river, and it reached about halfway across the river. And there on the end of this log was Katie. They quickly retrieved the child and gave her a good once-over to check for any serious injuries. She did have some scratches, nothing life-threatening or severe at all. They noted a couple puncture marks on her back to where it looked like the bear had carried her, but she said that it had heard them, jumped into the river, and swam away. So I'm sure you're assuming as well that the mom and dad of this child asked her what the fuck happened.
Like any responsible parent would do,
Right. And as if the story wasn't fucking crazy enough, I mean, a bear actually snatches a child, doesn't see what the inside of her fucking head tastes like, keeps her alive overnight, and is actually found alive the next day. I think that's pretty gnarly enough. And I have to say that during this time, when I started reading into this stuff, bears did snatch children. It's something that happened. I read somewhere that it happened a lot during berry picking sessions. They would leave the smaller children behind to sit while they would walk away to go pick berries, or even leave an infant in a basket. It would happen. But she had this to say, or what everyone else says she said. Now, if you remember all the articles that I mentioned earlier, well, a lot of those articles talk to different people about this case, but not just anyone. Apparently, Henry and his wife didn't just tiptoe back into camp, grab a kerosene lamp and a giant magnifying glass, and then sneak back out into the woods to look for their daughter. They raised the alarm. The whole camp was looking for Katie that night. So these articles talk to actual eyewitnesses to the event. Now, what I meant by everyone else saying what she said is that from almost all the accounts, it plays out the same. There was even one witness, W.E. Barry, who was not part of the search party, I don't believe. And he had come to the area to try to cross the river on this giant log, that actual same log where Katie was found.
Wait a second. He came to the area specifically to see that log?
No, to cross it, to try to cross the river from that log. If not, I read an account that he brought some men with him to clear it up, to take care of this jackknife log in the river. As they approached, they saw what they thought was a bear running on this log on 3 legs. One of his men raised a rifle to shoot the bear, but was stopped, as it appeared to be carrying a child. So that part of the story, how she went missing, all that stuff, basically stays the same. What the little girl said happened varies a little bit.
So that story right there is like a lot like one of the missing 411 stories. I can't remember the kid's name, but he was picking berries with his family, and he went behind a blueberry bush. His dad went around to get him. Like literally he was out of his sight just enough to get behind a blueberry bush. And by the time his dad got around, he was missing. And later that day, someone said that they saw this hairy thing walking through the woods up a hill with what looked like a kid over his shoulder.
Yes, I remember that case. I've seen that case covered so many times. That was a sad one. That dad ran for 2 miles screaming his son's name, looking for him, in panic before he called the authorities. And yeah, that's a rough one. There's a good channel that I subscribed to on the YouTubes that covered it very well and in depth. I'll put that in the show notes for anybody who wants to check that out. But yeah, it does sound like the same thing. It sounds very similar to what happened to the little kid in 2019. But when we get down to what she said what happened, first off, it's noted by almost everybody who talked to her that she didn't want to say what happened. And she said because nobody was going to believe what she was saying or that she was making it up. So when she was first asked by her parents, she said, that it's reported anyway, that she said the bear took her. She said it would roughly bump its head onto her head, and she said that she would slap it away, and it would start purring and put his head down and rub on her.
It would purr. That's crazy.
Right?
Bears don't purr.
Exactly.
What's it that makes no sense. So I don't know. Unless she's like mistaking like a low growl or something. I don't know.
I didn't even think of it like that, but yeah. Can you imagine this little fucking kid just slapping a bear and having it fucking be
it's
like
purring?
Bitch.
Meanwhile, the bear's like, I'm gonna eat your fucking face.
There was one witness who was interviewed in one of those later articles who was just a boy at the time, but he was there in the camp and he was part of the people they're looking for, said that she stated the bear took her from the sand pile. He said that it kept her safe and gathered winter berries for her to eat, and it had her sleep cuddled up with him through the night. Now, W.E. Barry from earlier stated that he had asked the little girl what had happened himself. And I'll get in a little bit to what he said because he had a lot to say about this case. He said that the little girl told him that a big black thing came up to her and started playing in the sand with her. It then reached out its, quote, paw, gesturing for her to go with it, which she did. At dusk, it came to her with a handful of berries after wandering off for a little bit. As night fell, it made a bed of leaves and cuddled up with her and made her sleep under its arm to keep her warm.
It's really weird. It's because there's like also some I hesitate to call them witches, but something some sort of like old hag or something. But there's legends where they will abduct kids and keep the kids in their house, not to like eat them or anything, but like they, for some reason, they just want to have the kid there and they feed them and keep them safe. And that's another thing that kids have reported when they go missing, that they find this house in the woods and this lady keeps them safe and feeds them.
Really?
So so I wonder if this is like some sort of shape-shifting entity, maybe it's like this weird society of werebears.
You're onto something
And
buddy.
they just want to, like, it's like a little kid that'll catch a bug in a jar and just keep it for a few days because it just wants to hang out with it, and then it lets it go.
Yeah, I think you might be on to something. There was one witness, Lewis C. Towns, friend of one of the search party members, said Katie never said there was a bear. She said it was a giant dog who approached her at the
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Maybe it's Dog Man.
Yeah. Okay, but check this out. It approached her at the sand pit. That part of the story was the same. And it played with her for a while. And then it picked her up, carried her away in its arms.
In its arms?
Yes.
And what else has arms but a man? So if it's a dog with arms, it's clearly a dog man.
Or a Bigfoot.
Or a werewolf.
Yes, or a werewolf. But he noted that when her mom, they said that he was told by these people that her mom noticed that one of her shoes were gone. And when she asked about the little girl said that the big dog ate it.
Typical dog. Always eating shoes.
Even werewolves. He's like, is that rubber?
Is it cool if I just gnaw on that for a little bit?
Eat these berries. You guys like berries, right? I'm gonna eat this shoe. Hold on.
No, dog, man, don't eat my shoe. And she goes to pull on her.
He snaps at her and she's all, ah. But that W.E. Barry said that he knew Henry Flynn. And he said that he was known to overhunt the bears and their cubs. And he even told a reporter that one other lumberjack told Henry Flynn, one of these days, these fucking bears are going to take revenge on you for taking their kids and snatch one of yours.
Oh, he was cursed.
Sounds like
maybe that
it.
guy was a werebear.
Yeah, maybe he was the
like,
bear.
You know what? Yeah, yep, it was him all along. And he's like, all right, well, I'm not going to hurt the kid, but this is to teach you a lesson, motherfucker.
Well, he may have been right. Barry later stated that the same bear was seen returning to the Flynn home many times. In fact, so much that Henry ended up hiring a guard to watch the house at night, who eventually shot and killed a bear. Maybe that bear, who knows?
I don't think it was that bear. I like to think it was a different bear.
Me too. I think that bear got shot at once, was like, I get it. We can't be friends anymore, little girl. No more berries and sleepovers for you. And it's not my fault. They just don't understand our friendship.
They're just pissed about the shoe, I think. Like, those were nice shoes, you asshole.
You know how hard shoes are come by in 1886?
They were freshly cobbled specifically for her little feet, and you chew one of them up? You son of a bitch.
She was going to wear those for the rest of her life, you asshole.
Yeah. Step too far, dog man.
So, with so many similarities to the case that you started with, the one from 2019, what do you think's going on here? I mean, you mentioned it could be this, it could be that. We got into that a little bit, but I definitely think there may be some misidentification going on here on all fronts. When I first heard about this, even the kid from 2019, one thing that stuck out to me is that this is not the behavior of a bear. Clearly, this is not the behavior of a bear. It was commonplace at this time for kids, I mean, like infants, unfortunately, getting snatched out of carrying baskets and then finding them shredded. So you said, I said Bigfoot real quick. Okay, so let's look at this case as if it's a Bigfoot. This isn't fucking Bigfoot behavior either.
Well, I see. I would say with Bigfoot, if it's more of a if we're looking at Bigfoot as being some sort of lost primate, then I would say it's more believable that this sort of thing would happen because some we've seen when kids fall into the ape pit how they they'll be one that'll typically be like the protector and try to care for the kid. And I think that the higher primates tend to have, well, even lower primates tend to have maternal behavior of some sort. So if Bigfoot is in fact a primate, then it could be possible that it could find a lost kid and be like, hey, you're going to come with me and be my little buddy.
Right, and I agree. I agree. Out of everything we've suggested so far, the Bigfoot would be the most likely candidate to be nurturing at all. But I still think, from what we've read about and know about Bigfoot encounters, those guys are a little bit pissed too. Not as pissed off as dogmen or werewolves, who definitely doesn't fit the behavior pattern that we're seeing in this story. Those things would have ripped that little kid up instantly. So I guess what kind of behavior are we seeing is a better question. And it seemed to be a kind, gentle, and almost loving entity. And to me, that's what makes it weird. It has some knowledge of dealing with a human child. It knows it's going to be hungry. I mean, it's demonstrating compassion. There was another case where the same thing happened in the early 1900s, where a 5-year-old boy was taken and they found bear tracks, tracked it down, and they didn't find the bear, but the little boy was asleep on top of a bed. They called it a bed. It made them a bed. This thing's showing compassion towards a human. There's no reason for this bear not to eat this little kid. So I can't fit a profile for this type of behavior with anything that I can think of, but I for sure as fuck don't think it was a bear. I don't think what the little kid dealt with in the woods in 2019 was a fucking bear. I definitely think it's misidentification, but of what, I don't know. But what you brought up earlier, I found interesting. And I knew you always hit it on the head before I get to it. A shapeshifter kind of popped into my head. A skinwalker.
Well, I think so it could be anything like that. Like really a skinwalker, if you think about it, it's essentially a werewolf or, whatever animal it's shape they're taking. But yeah, I think that could be the case, some sort of magical thing. And who knows, maybe it's able to like derive energy from kids.
Their
and
youthfulness.
Sometimes it kills them, and that's when they never show up again. And other times it lets them go. And that's, I remember hearing cases where a kid goes missing and turns up later, and they say that they were able to hear the people calling them, but it sounded like it was coming from somewhere else. Like they were calling back, but they couldn't ever hear them calling back. So it was like maybe the kid was in some sort of like pocket dimension or something.
Ooh.
And he can kind of hear what's going on outside, but it's kind of distorted, but they can't hear him at all.
Yikes. That's a scary thought. What entity would be able to do that? What entity would be able to do that people are calling a bear or a dog?
Well, maybe it's just like the shape it takes. Maybe for kids, it's like, you know what, I'll be some awesome fuzzy animal that's going to keep them warm and fed, and I'm not going to be scary. And kids are just, they try to equate it to like the most similar animal. So it's, it's maybe it was just like a furry, 1800s furry.
It was some lonely dude in a bear fur suit.
Yeah, and they didn't know. They're like, oh, look, he looks like a friendly teddy bear. He's like, yes, that's exactly what I have. Come in the woods with me, little kid. I'll get you some berries.
Who knows? I don't know. I definitely don't think that it's a person. I think there's something weird going on here. And I came across a case that might fortify that it's something entirely different going on here. And after I came up with the story, I don't know what to call this thing except just that. In my notes, I have the thing. And it took place in 1907 in Afton, Virginia, at the farm of James Ingram. One day, James and his wife made plans to hang out with their neighbors with their 2-month-old baby in the evening after James got done with work. James and his wife agreed to meet at the fence at the border of their property at dusk. As he'd be passing by there, when he was done, he would just pick them up and then continue on down the road to go to their neighbor's house to hang out for a night of Cokefield Bender orgy. I'm just kidding. As she was getting ready, she noticed that she had lollygagged a bit, and it had gotten a little bit darker than what she had liked. She knew that her husband was probably waiting, so she gathered what she needed really quick, grabbed the baby, and made her way to this fence line. As she approached, she saw a figure of her husband, the shape of her husband standing outside of the fence. And as she walked up, she handed the baby to him. And the person who grabbed the baby turned around and walked away into the woods. And she said, "Hey." And to her right, somebody said, "Hey." And she looked and it was her husband. And she was kind of like, "What the fuck is happening?" And he's like, "What do you mean what's happening?" She goes, "I just handed you the baby. I just handed you the baby."
That's fucking terrifying.
They never saw their baby
God.
again.
Oh my God, that's awful.
The next morning, when daylight broke, they looked where they met, where she handed this baby off, and the only thing they could find is what they described as immense bear tracks that led back into the woods. So this is the story of something that definitely changed shape, because she wasn't going to hand off her baby to a fucking bear no matter how dark it was.
Wow, dude, that is so scary.
Yeah, that is a very, very strange one.
Wow. And so it took the shape of her husband and stole the baby.
Yeah, she said it was dark. She said what she saw was a silhouette of a person, that she could only assume that was her husband that would be staying there. And
so she wasn't 100%. She was just assuming.
Right.
Well, she certainly made an ass out of herself with that one.
Yeah.
Don't assume.
Yeah, but there's tons of cases like this, dude. It happens all the time. And they're always the same. 1896, a young girl named Helma Ursler. The article says that she wandered away from her home in a place called the Allegheny Mountains. And they couldn't find her. They noticed that she was gone. And again, found a trail of bear tracks and followed them. And they found her in a clearing playing with bear cubs.
Oh, wow. So in this case, she was the Disney princess.
Right.
She went in and she's like, la 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 la. And then all the bears come out of the forest and she plays with the cubs, and the mama and papa bears wait and they're watching the trees like, "Oh, just calm down here. Let the kids play." And they just kind of watch on lovingly as this little girl plays with their cubs. And what they don't know is she's been doing this for a while, but she hadn't been there. So Papa Bear went looking to find because the cubs were like, "We want to play with a little girl." So he had to go find her, and he grabs her and pulls her, and he's like, "You're gonna play with my kids, goddammit." And that's what happened in this instance. She was the Disney princess.
Right. 2019, dude, I can't get over how recent that is, for how long this has been reported. This exact same thing. And it's funny because the little girl in the beginning said dog. It's reported that she said dog, but it's always a bear. Maybe it's like a retired battle beast.
Maybe it's got like big bear paws, but it's got like floppy ears or something.
Yeah, I mean, maybe, I don't know. I almost want to go look at Creatures of the Lumberwoods to see if anything fits this description.
The bear dog.
It kind of sounds like a hide behind.
Shit, I didn't even think about the hide behind.
Yeah. I don't know. It's to me when it happened in 2019. I kind of just waited for them to say something else. I mean, it's been a few years. Has anybody asked that fucking kid, are you sure it was a bear that took care of you in the woods while you were gone for 3 days? I mean, 3 years
He
old.
was 3. I'm sure he probably doesn't even remember.
You're probably right. And that's shitty. That sucks. Let's put him under hypnosis. Let's experiment on this kid.
Hypnotize him and fucking figure it out. Come on.
I don't know, dude. What would you do if, God forbid, I'm knocking on wood, if that happened? Your fucking kids, dude. At any age, I mean, 3 years old is pretty young for the 2019 case, but this has happened to teenagers. There's a case of a girl getting snatched by a bear that seemed to be waiting for her outside, and she went to a shed, and it grabbed her by her leg and ran for like a quarter mile into the woods, set her down, and looked at her and left. But what would
That's really weird. It just sets her down, and it's like, all right, see it.
Yeah. No, not into it? Screaming too much? All right. My bad. Set her down. It's going to make you my bride.
I wanted to take you on a mystical adventure, but no, you couldn't shut your mouth. You could just stay here instead.
What would you think? What would go through your mind if your kid said, Dad, I did get lost. And when it got dark, this fucking thing, I don't know. I don't know if it was a bear or a dog or what, but it literally took care of me.
If one of my kids told me that, I would absolutely believe them, but I don't know. It's like I would have so many questions. Like, was it an actual bear? Was it a dog? Was it a man? What the fuck was it?
Yeah, dude, that would be crazy. I'd be like, did they try to touch your privates? No? Okay. Tell me what happened.
Dude, I don't remember if I told you, but we went camping at a state park over the summer, and my oldest son wanted to go fishing, and he's 16, so I didn't really think too much about it. But we were all hiking, and he wanted to hike ahead. We wanted to hang out at these waterfalls and chill for a little bit. And so he kept going, and a couple hours went by, and we decided to go looking for him. So we went all throughout the trails. We went around this, what they called a lake. I definitely wasn't an actual lake, but could not find him. Went back. We called the park rangers. We called the I can't remember some other people we called. And then we're all waiting. We don't know what to do. And then I go back to the waterfall, and sure enough, there he is. It just so happens at that point in time, he's walking back. And I was fucking scared shitless because it's a state park, and he went off on his own, and he's missing. And I'm like, shit, this is missing 411.
Oh, no.
Yeah, that's like the first thing I thought of is, like, I'm not thinking he's kidnapped. I'm not thinking he fell in the water or anything. Like, I'm thinking missing 411. He was abducted by Bigfoots.
Oh, my God, dude. I would have fucking had a heart attack before I even went back to the waterfall to find them, dude. That shit's scary. You're talking about hearing voices of the kids being called from other dimensions. And I know I probably mentioned this before, but there's an episode of Twilight Zone that's like that. And I've actually had that thought. I've actually had that fear. That shit's terrifying to me. To me, that's what's so creepy about the missing 411 shit, is that there's people that go missing for sure. National parks, big area, it's going to happen. But when people are talking about walking side by side with one of their friends, and they just turn into nothing in front of their face and they run because it's terrifying. If people are disappearing as they pass trees, if people are leaving voicemails on their cell phones with 3 different voices, and one of them is there screaming for their life, and it transforms into another voice that can't possibly be a human. Oh, yeah.
I have not heard of this. That's...
What? All right, everybody, hold on 1 second.
I do remember that now.
Okay, yeah. So, and then where they found him like dead in 3 inches of water with his lungs full of water.
Yeah, it's a weird one.
Yeah, that shit's going on. I would have been freaking the fuck out. Like I said, I ain't going to none of those fucking parks. But yeah, I'm definitely glad that you guys got a hold of them. You got to get like one of those tags and put it on there. Fucking tell them it's a cool necklace.
Well, the problem was he didn't have his phone. If he had his phone, it wouldn't have even been a big deal.
Right.
I could have called him and he could have told me exactly where it was, but he didn't have his phone. So then it was like, if you're going off on your own, you need to have your phone.
No, you can tell him. He could have been snatched by a bear and been force-fed berries and cuddles. You want to be force
You would have
cuddling?
had a diet of berries and cuddles, you son of a bitch.
Yeah.
Don't do that again.
You would have shit for weeks after eating that many berries.
Yeah, it's not just about berries. Mind your P's and Q's, kids.
Right. Our listeners are smart. They know what's up with the woods, but
They know what's up.
they do.
They know there's creatures in them that are lumber woods.
Oh yeah, especially like the one I'm going to close the show with. Is another example of bears doing shit they shouldn't be doing, and this one I call the tale of the battle bear.
Oh shit! I thought you were going to talk about male bears giving each other blowies.
No,
Because that's a real thing.
really.
Yeah. Just for kicks, they nuzzle each other's. Like one will lay back and the other one will have at it for a little bit.
Wow. All right. I
Yeah,
mean,
it's been documented in nature.
huh? Sometimes it gets lonely in the woods.
Yeah, man. Bears need loving too. I get it. It's fine. You do you, bears.
Well, this bear was not interested in sucking.
Maybe he should have been. Maybe he would have stayed out of trouble.
Well, that's just what he was looking for, because on March 4th, 1904, Millville, New Jersey, farmer Charles Chester Ford was riding his horse into town one evening. He said he saw something big and dark bumbling around up the road ahead. And a few moments later, as he approached where that creature or whatever it was messing around, he said a brown bear emerged from the bushes, blocking the road, armed with a wooden club.
What?
Yes.
Was he wearing a bandana as well?
No, but it did brandish the club. It did kind of...
Nice. Yes.
It said it got up on its haunches and stood right up and kind of let him know that he was going to beat his ass. And that's weird for two reasons. One is that
Only two reasons. You only find two weird things about this story.
Brown bears have never existed in New Jersey, only black bears. And the article when this was written states that bears hadn't been seen in Jersey for years at this point. And two is that the bear had a fucking club and he brandished it.
He was brandishing it in a threatening manner.
He was all, hey, motherfucker.
Yeah. Oh my God. That's incredible.
Yeah, well, this spooked the horse out. He knew that wasn't right either.
Well, yeah. I can imagine it would. Like, oh, fuck, there's a fucking club bear.
So
it's like one of those battle beasts from the 80s.
Yeah. It's like their 18th century model. They're like, no, fight with the battle beast of old. Bear
Yeah.
club. But it spooked the horse. It reared up and it ran back to the house. And that's a weird fucking story to make up for no fucking reason. I mean, like, why would you? I don't know. I mean, like, maybe.
I don't know. I mean, we did do 2 episodes on creatures of the lumberwoods, so there's a lot of ridiculousness that went on in the 1800s.
Yeah, absolutely. I can just picture this frantic, freaked out poor guy riding.
And what happened to this bear? That's what I'm more concerned with. Like, where did this bear go, and why did it never have another run-in with a person?
I'm sure it did. It just fucking wised up, put a bandana on, and became a highwayman.
He just shaves his face, and he's like, "No one will ever know."
It's like that end episode of Adventure Bros when they shaved Bigfoot to smuggle it out of the woods. It's just that he just did that and was like, "Give me all your fucking money."
Just with the brandishing, the club brandishing bear.
Yeah, I mean, like, shaved, it's still like, what, 8.5 feet tall standing up? It's like, give me that satchel full of gold coins, motherfucker. I will brain you right now. That bear started Google.
He's still around to this day. A mystical shaved bear. He's a tech-savvy guy. He dabbles in stocks.
And he'll bash in your fucking brains.
And he'll club you to death.
And your horse. He wasn't even bothered by that horse.
Yeah. The horse was bothered by him, though, I'm sure.
Yeah. So apparently bears are fucking weird animals. I mean, I still don't know what to make of this, dude. To me, it's just beyond weird. I'll put the video that I found a lot of the stuff I talk about in the show notes. And I don't even know how I came across it, but I just, maybe I was watching something about it on YouTube and the algorithm picked up on it, but it just made me think of how weird that shit was in 2019. Like I said, that's pretty fucking modern for something that strange to happen. You make a good point. That little dude's not going to remember. It happened when he was 3. But to read about so many cases of the exact same thing, being fed berries. These fucking bears knew which ones to feed people to not make them sick, to make a bed. This bear knew that that the kid needed a bed to sleep on, or probably, even prefer a bed to sleep on. It's nurturing more than just a natural animal instinct would permit. It seems like they have previous knowledge of on how to take care of a child. To me, it's just unexplainable. If it is just a fucking bear.
I don't think we can. I don't think it's just a bear. There's more to it than that. And I think the only answer is fucking shapeshifters. And who are the best shapeshifters of all time? Fucking barn owls.
Oh, there you go. We have evidence of it shifting.
Yeah. It's been documented. It's been a Mothman. It has been a goblin. It has been a flatwoods monster. Why can't it also be a dog man or bear club
warrior
guy? Yeah, bear club warrior.
Well, even with the presence of bear club warrior, our listeners know what to do in the woods. They know what to do if they're lost in the woods.
What if they don't, Mateo?
Don't be scared. It's Jetpack the Owlbear.
Good old Jetpack the Owlbear. Actually, probably most of the people listening don't even know Jetpack the Owlbear. That was like early Patreon stuff.
Yeah, that was a long time ago.
Yeah.
But maybe that's
so for the 3 people that were around in the early days of Patreon, Jetpack the Owlbear.
Yeah, you do.
You're probably like the only ones.
Now I'm going to have to draw Jetpack battling Bear Club Warrior Man.
Do you still have the Jetpack the Owlbear theme song anywhere?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we'll have to put that in.
I'll put it in right now. A Jetpack Owlbear. If you're lost in the woods, don't be scared. There's Jetpack the Owlbear.
Thank you for listening to the Whatcast. You can find us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, iTunes, and YouTube. Enjoy the podcast. Get yourself a Whatcast t-shirt or a sticker pack. Who was that dude on that one episode? Try the links in Homie's page. All this and more can be found at www.thewhatcasters.com. Thanks again for listening and have a great week.